Welcome to the Room of Lives. I'm your host, Neil. In this second part of our conversation, Albert shares two mysterious stories of synchronicities that saved his life. In the first story, a lifeguard who he had a crush on was led by a mysterious mind voice to his doorstep in one of the lowest moments of his life. In the second, a chance phone call pulls him away from the Oklahoma City bombing, but months later, the explosion strikes again inside his mind.
I didn't know how to swim there. I wasn't. I would go swim in the lake and I would go swim. There was a lodge right up from my house and there was a swimming pool there. And this lodge now belongs to Tom Cruise's group. And it's a Al-Anon for the rich and famous. There's an airfield up there. And they fly people in there and they do drug rehab up there now. But before, when I was younger, when I was 18, I would ride my dirt bike up there and I would hustle pole up there and make money. So I had a different girlfriend every week. And, but then the lifeguard caught my eye, you know? And so I was like, man, forget swimming in the lake. I'm going to go swim in the pool, you know? And so I go up and swim in the pool. Me and my buddy go up there and we talked to this lifeguard. And, she was like 21 years old. I was 18 or 9. I think I was 19 at the time. And she was like 21 years old. And I kind of had the hots for her, but I knew she was out of my league, you know. And I woke up one Saturday and my father and my stepmother had taken off. I was home for the weekend. My father and my stepmother had taken off, and they were gone for a day or two. And I was living at the house in between college and military. And I just had this anger. I was in the living room, and this anger started coming over me. And I didn't know what it was. And I started getting angrier and uncontrollable to the point to where I was just screaming. And once it became such a heightened level of anger and confusion that I couldn't handle it anymore, it all came to me why I was angry. And when I was living with my mother, back when I was walking to school in the first grade, she would have me go stay with my grandmother. And my sister and I would go over there. And my step-grandfather, worked for the airlines. And he had this big Continental car. And one day, it's all came back to me. And I just put it out of my mind. One day, he wanted me to go with him, so we went cruising around. We went into Atlanta, and we ended up over by the university. At this house, we pull up and try to meet this grungy guy, this younger guy, probably in his early 20s. And we go in with my grandfather, who's probably in his early 60s at the time. We go in there and like the place stinks of weed. So we go in there and this guy's pulling a cookie sheet out with a bunch of marijuana baked on it. And I guess he was trying it out, baking it, whatever these means. And buds or whatever it was. I don't know. I really don't know what he was doing, but he rolled a joint and my grandfather smoked it with him. I was like, what and my grandfather's like, go sit on the couch, watch a little TV. I'm going to go back in the room. I'll be back. I'm going to go back here. I'll be back. And so he goes back there, and he's back there for about 20 minutes. And I walk over, and I look back there, and I see this young, like probably college age girl back there with him. And he comes out, he's putting his belt back on and everything, and time to go, you know. And so we take off, and we're headed home. And he tells me, he says, "Don't tell your grandma when we win." I'm like, okay. He's like, "She wouldn't understand. She doesn't get upset with you. And she knew you were money." I'm like, okay. So I'm remembering all this now. It's all coming back to me as a flash, right? And so we go have dinner, and I slept in the basement while I was there. And so this had occurred. When I was young, in first grade. And then just a few years later, I went to go visit my mother for a very short period of time during the summer. And then that's when this occurred. Yeah. So my step grandfather decides that he's going to sleep in the basement with me. Tells my grandmother, "I'm going to sleep down in the basement, with my grandson. And we're going to hang out. We're going to have a guys' night." All right, cool. So grandpa comes down there. Lay out our sleeping bags. And he gets in his, I get in mine. Shut the lights off. Get ready to go sleep. We're talking a little bit. And then I notice my zipper. He's unzipping my zipper, my sleeping bag. And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, just relax, just relax. You know, don't you remember he told me, "Don't you remember how we used to play, you and your sister with me in grandma's room?" And yeah, he molested me that night. And then I remembered then that he molested me. And then I remembered what he said. And then I remembered him molesting me when I was 1 and my sister. And then I wanted to kill him. I went and got the 357 that I told you about earlier. And I wanted to kill him. And so I went into my station with it.
This was the night that you were starting to get angry?
Yes, and then when I was really angry. And I'm like, this is the anger brought me to this boiling point. And then that's when all the memories came back.
And somehow the memories had been forgotten all this time.
They were suppressed all the way up until I was 14. I remembered them. And I remember telling my father about it, and he called my grandmother. My grandmother said she didn't know anything about it, said I was lying. He called my mother. My mother said I was lying. I found out later my grandmother did know about it. She just liked her lifestyle. Didn't want to lose it. And my mother knew about it because he was like that with everybody in the family.
Yeah.
And so they told my dad that I was lying, and my father hate me for lying, that guy. And so I put it out of my head. And at that point in time, when I was 14, I realized that no matter what happened in my life, I would never go to anybody with it and tell them about it because I just get punished for it.
But at this time, you were getting the...
Now I'm 19 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting the gun?
And I get the 357 and I take it out of my dad's closet and I go in there. It's loaded. And I'm thinking I want to kill him. And then I realize, comes to me, he died last year. At the time where I was 19, when I was 18, he died. And then I'm really mad because I don't get a chance to kill him. Because I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about my sister and how I didn't protect my sister from him. And my sister is retarded, handicapped,
Oh, yeah.
She got the mentality of a 3-year-old.
So grandfather molested your sister as well?
Myself and my sister. Yeah. And about the second time I was the only one in the house. But he said, the way he said, and I barely remember it, but I know that my sister and I were both in the bedroom with my grandfather when I was incarcerated. And we would go watch TV with him alone in him and my grandmother's bedroom and in the bed. And I remember vaguely some type of interaction between him and me and my sister.
Mm.
And when he said, "Don't you remember the games that your sister and I used to play?" And that you and your sister and I used to play. I mean, at that point in time, you would think that I would just go off on him and be like, "Hey, I don't like, no, grandma, right?" But you got to remember, I was like probably 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right? And I had nobody in my life I could trust.
Mm.
Yeah. I felt like my father hated me. My mother hated me because she rejected me. My father's physically and mentally aggressive towards me.
So you had nowhere to
I don't know about it.
Yeah.
My grandmother, but I didn't want to upset my grandmother because I didn't want, this is my fault. I'm allowing this to happen. This is,
I just like shut down.
if my grandma knows, then she's not going to let me come over anymore. So that's, and he played it that way. He was a predator. And so I just shut down. I let him know what he's going to do. And I shut down. And
so when you're 19, you're like remembering this
yeah,
and you realize that he's dead.
I realized that he's dead. And so I started thinking about that, feeling guilty that I didn't protect my sister. And since I didn't protect my sister, I didn't deserve to live. So I started thinking suicidal thoughts. And then that was it. I was going to blow my brains out. Lived at 357. I was a worthless piece of shit. Didn't even deserve to live it because I didn't protect my sister. And I was at the pinnacle of it. I had the gun in my hand. I was at the pinnacle of blowing my brains out in the thought process. I don't know if I would have done it, but I was as close to doing it as you can get.
Yeah.
And then there was a knock at my door. And nobody comes to my house. There was a knock at my door, and it was strange because it was the door in my garage. It goes into my kitchen, which you had to access that through a man door to get into my garage. If anybody was going to come to my house, they would typically go to the front door because it was right there in view. But there was a knock at my garage door. I'll be in my kitchen door. And I don't know what to do for a second. And then I see a newspaper and I put the gun underneath the newspaper on the cabinet. I go open the door and there is the lifeguard from the swimming pool. My crush, right? I'm at the lowest pinnacle in my life. And I'm standing there in front of the one woman that can make a difference, right? But she didn't know where I lived. And I asked her, I said, I told her, I said, hi. Because I was confused. And I could see she was also confused. She's like, hi. And she's looking at me like she didn't expect me to answer the door. She didn't know who lived there. And so, and it'll be explanatory here in a second, but she looked at me like she didn't know who was on the other side of that door. And so I told her, I say, what are you doing? She's like, oh, are you okay? And I go, yeah, I'm okay. She goes, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. What are you doing here? Do you know where I live? Did you know where I live? And she's like, no, I didn't. I said, well, I mean, what are you doing here? I mean, I'm glad you're here, but what's going on? And she goes, I really don't know. She goes, I was driving down the road and going home, and I heard a voice in my head, a loud voice. like in my car. It said, turn right on this road. And so I turned right on it. It was overwhelming. It was like powerful voice, and she told him tonight. And I drove a little more, and it was like, turn right here. I drove a little more, and turn left here. So I hold down that road, and like, pull in the driveway. So I pull in the driveway, get out of the car, and go through the door by the garage. So she gets out of the car, she goes to the door by the garage. She walks in the garage, she sees 3 other doors. Knock on the door to the left. She knocked on the door to the left, and I answered. And she goes, and you answered. Now, she knew who my sister was, my stepsister also. So she was trying to make sense of things. I was trying to make sense of things. So she asked me, she goes, is your sister here? And I was like, no, everybody's gone. And she could tell, I mean, I was crying her arriving. I was angry. I was in tears. My emotions had exploded. And I was ready to end my life. And she goes, are you sure you're okay? Normally, when this hottie showed up at my door, I would have been like, yeah, come on in, have a seat. Want something to drink? I got some beer, But no, I was lying. I was confused. She was confused. And I was embarrassed a little bit. And so she's like, are you sure you're all right? And I said, yeah, I'm good. And she goes, okay, I guess I'll go in and take off. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, good seeing you. She is already, you're sure you're all right? You want me to come in? I'm like, no, I'm good. And then I told her, I said, no, I'm good. I'm good now. I told her, I said, I'm good now. And then she kind of looked at me and smiled, and she's like, okay, I'll see you later. And she left. And later on, I wrote a chapter for my book in it. I put it in my original graph, and then I changed it because my beta readers that read my book thought that story that I wrote up was way too dark for the rest of my book. Because the rest of my book is there's a lot of, man, this kid's life was rough, but in a way it was cool too, because he was like, and that Tom Sawyer effect of his life.
But I think there's like
at the end of that chapter that I wrote, that I put in my original draft of my book, I wrote on there, I said, when I'm down in the deepest, darkest, muddiest waters in my life, shit-filled waters of my life, God, or Jesus, I said Jesus. Jesus sent me a lifeguard. When I was drowning in my deepest, darkest, shit-filled waters of my life.
I think what's really cool about the story is they're kind of like the mysterious element to it, It's kind of like magical. Like, there is a word for it called synchronicity, which is like kind of like a coincidence, but deeper. It's like not just a coincidence. It's not just like something just happened to happen. It's like something that for sure there's something under the surface of what happened, but can't really explain it. And that's why I'm also really interested in if you could share it again.
Sure.
The other story, which was about the Social Security office, because that is yet another example of when your life would have ended otherwise.
Right.
But due to strange event, it did not.
Yeah.
So as you were sharing these stories earlier today, I was like, actually, today my life would have seemed pretty normal. Okay, I go to work, I run this eye tracking stuff, and then I'm having lunch with you at the, cafeteria. I was like, well, after I hear your story, I was like, it's actually a little bit of a miracle that we are meeting today and even having this conversation, because without those kind of miraculous events, you would not be here today.
That's
I would not be. So I was like,
I believe 100% it was meant to be.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, I felt like my otherwise normal day was also seen to be something like, oh, something miraculous had to happen in order for my normal day today to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would not be talking to you.
Yeah.
So if you could share the Social Security office
Okay.
story.
Do you want me to come back to the rest of the military stuff?
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, we can come back later, but I want to hear the Social Security office story.
Well, I'll just give a preface to it and into it so we know where we're going.
Yeah.
And anybody that plays football and gets concussions understands you're much weaker under a concussion. And if you don't, and now we know that we don't let that concussion heal. That's why we don't get stronger. That's why we continue to stay weak. And a lot of football players, if they don't heal, they end up losing their career because they can't perform at that standard anymore. But if they were to heal and give it time to recover, then they may be able to perform at that standard again. But I wasn't performing at the standard, so I left Navy SEALs. Tortured myself for 10 months because I didn't achieve it. Felt a failure. I wouldn't cut a roof over my head for 10 months. I had a very interesting spiritual experience. Let's say it was a vision quest for 10 months. And I definitely had a spiritual experience that we'll talk about later. And then I came home, decided to become a paramedic. I was a paramedic in Oklahoma City. I had gone through Family Vocational School where I could go from a layperson to paramedic, ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support, PLS, Pediatric Advanced Life Support, PHTLS, Pre-Hospital Trauma Life Support, paramedic, all those certifications in 8 months. 10 months. Even a 2-year program plus. I worked as a paramedic in Oklahoma City for 4.5 years. Averaged 4 gunshot wounds a night. 12-hour shifts. And then I would moonlight the rest of the days, 24 and 16-hour shifts. So I was running a gun constantly. And reached burnout. I reached burnout emotionally, physically. There was a time when I worked 32 days in a row, 24 hours, 16, 12-hour shifts, 32 days in a row. I passed out on first second day. I had when I left Navy SEAL school, I had made it a point that I would never fail anything else again in my life. I had pushed myself to points where I wasn't going to accept failure anymore, no matter what. And in my professional life, needless to say, I was failing in my personal life with my new wife and daughter and friends. So after 4.5 years as a paramedic, as I gained knowledge as a paramedic, I started cutting some corners in order to save lives. Like we had a textbook. It was almost like cookbook medicine. And we had a medical director. I worked for Japanese conglomeration. And we had a medical director that wanted medics to just do textbook medicine for like 2 years. And then he wanted new medics. He didn't want medics. He didn't want paramedics out there practicing medicine. He wanted them going by a cookbook. Well, sometimes you have to step outside the cookbook in order to save a life. And if you have enough information on the way to a call that you know what type of equipment you need, and that equipment is limited compared to the amount of equipment they require you to take into the call, following the cookbook, and you think that seconds count with that patient's life, you're only going to take into what you need. Your partner can follow up with what he needs to bring in, or you can send a firefighter out to get what you need. But in my mind, I was going to save a life. And I'll be damned if I was going to let the company I worked for keep me from saving a life. And so I had that mindset. And it didn't rub well with many people. So I was in there getting orders for some medicine I needed to give IV. Can't remember what it was, Demerol or something like that. It was either pain meds or maybe it was for seizure, might have been Valium. I don't know. I can't remember. But I was trying to get the orders from the medical control, and management was headhunting me so hard that when supervisor walked in, I was on the phone. My patient was with my partner and the firefighters. I was standing right there in eye shot. I was getting orders for the medicine, and I had my hand in my pocket. And I was taken off the street for a week without pay in order to investigate why I had my hand in my pocket. It was unprofessional. And so there was about 3 weeks there where I was taken off without pay, and I had to start moonlighting on other ends. And luckily, I got my insurance license. I started doing insurance on the side just to make money. And I decided at that point in time, I was going through a separation with my wife. My wife was snooping around on me. She was snooping with everybody, my ex-wife then. We just had a kid. She had invited her cousin in to live with us. Come to find out, he was her second cousin, and she was sleeping with him. I mean, it was... And I was running the streets, and I didn't know what was going on. All I know is one day I went and pulled her out of her apartment, where I found my Jeep in her apartment, and I knew this old man that we met in a bar one night was getting a insurance settlement, and my wife wanted that money. I could tell she wanted the money. She started sucking up to him and everything, like disgustingly. So I asked him where he lived, because I knew she didn't know his place. So I asked him where he lived. He told me where he lived, roughly. So I went looking for him one day because I was late for work. And I already had enough problems with management. I didn't need to be showing up late. And so I was in uniform, driving my other vehicle around, and I found my Jeep in the apartment complex. So I just went to the door closest to the Jeep because I knew she was lazy. And I went in and knocked on the door. He answered the door with his cane, the old man. And I looked at him and I said, "Where's my wife?" And he just pointed to the bedroom. I went in there and she was in there with 3 other guys. And her pants were undone. And she was on the bed with 3 other guys. And I told her, I said, "Get your shit together, put your pants on. Get in the car. You got a baby to take care of. I got to get to work." And they kind of load up on me a little bit, but I back that down real quick. And I took her home, and I went to work. I decided to go after duty, and I tell the recruiters I want to go as soon as I can. So they give me a date. It's like 3 months out that I can go to the military enlistment processing station. I get a phone call on a Friday that they want me to go to the Met Center on Tuesday. I tell them I can't go. I have an appointment Tuesday at the Social Security office at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're like, "Well, if you don't go now, we won't be able to get you in for another 3 months. And you won't be able to go active for another 3 months. And you're going to have to wait around. You know, if you go now, we can get you back on. We can get you on active duty this month and get you paid, get your daughter, see insurance, all that stuff. And I'm like, well, I got this appointment that I set. And they said, well, just do it the next week. I said, all right, I'll do that. So I changed my appointment from Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. It's a street office to go to the Med Center. So on Monday night, I went to the hotel. Tuesday morning, I'm in the Med Center. I'm standing there with the doctor and a bunch of other guys in our skivvies, palms out, getting our physical, doing the duck walk and all that stuff when the building shakes violently. And the doctor looks at me, and I look at the doctor, and he goes, I think your gas main blew up. And I looked at him, and I said, no, I think that was ordnance. And he goes, you think? And I said, I think so. But it sounded like it was right outside the building. It wasn't. It was the Oklahoma City building blew up. And so the Alpha Premier building blew up, and we were 4 miles away from it, and it shook the government building, the brick government building that we were in. Violent. So you can imagine the blast now for Euro building that occurred. I went up as a paramedic 18 hours later. I had already left IMSA as a paramedic. I had told management that I was going to quit because they just kept, after being off without pay for 3 weeks, I couldn't afford it anymore. But I just went down to the Alpha Euro building to see what I could do because I still had my medic bag as a medic assigned to Special Forces unit, and so I had basically an 18 Delta bag, Special Forces medic bag with everything in it. And so I took that down there. I got with the FBI. They took me to the gymnasium. They fingerprinted me. Pat gave me a pass, and I was able to go in ground zero and be there for medical assistance, which I ended up doing a bunch of humanitarian stuff, non-medical stuff. Really wasn't anything for me to do. I may have bandaged someone up or something like that, or a dog, a canine, but I don't remember any great detail of me doing anything significant down there. Ironically, just real quickly, my favorite student, I was a field training officer as a medic at the time. My favorite student at that company that was riding with me, I thought I had high hopes for her because she was doing the emergency room technician. That was her goal. She was in paramedic program. She's doing really good. I gave her great reviews. She was an awesome med. She's actually one of the first on scene in Oklahoma City bombing. Dr. Spangler from Oklahoma Memorial Hospital was eating breakfast with her. After they finished the midnight shift, they went down for breakfast, and they were a few blocks away from the building when it blew up, and they were the first on scene. And there was nothing but body parts everywhere. And when the fire department showed up, she was like, what can I do? I'm a paramedic. I can help. They gave her a bucket and told her to pick up body parts because when the media gets here, we don't want to see this. That's what I was told. That's what I read about years later when I came across her again. I was there for about 18 hours, and then I left. And I went on active duty. I went to Fort Bliss, Washington. It was so ACO was the bombing, and I went back I actually went into the Social Security office in September or October. So yeah, I went to go get Social Security card for my daughter.
And when the first bombing had happened, had you realized that the bombing had the building that was blown up was the Social Security office? You had not.
I never even thought about it.
Wow. Okay.
And so what I know now is that I was supposed to be in the Social Security office at the Alpha Premier building on the first floor. You walk in down the stairs. Social Security office was on the left. I had an appointment to be there on the 19th of April, 1995 at 9 a.m. The bomb went off 19th of April, 1995 at 9:02 a.m.
And you were not there only because of the phone call that you had got.
The phone call I got Friday.
Yeah.
The Army convinced me not to go there. So a lot of times I say the Army saved my life.
Yes.
People are like, oh, the Army ruined me, dude. No, the Army saved my life.
So what happened after?
I learned everything that I know as a man right now. I contribute 95% of it to the United States Army.
Yeah.
It's a Ranger battalion.
Yeah. So what happened the next time that you went into a different Social Security office?
The next time I went was in Tacoma, Washington. I still didn't have my daughter on TRICARE because I didn't have a Social Security card for her. So I went to go get the Social Security card, a number. And I walked in that office, and I was there for about 2 minutes, standing in line. And I was there for about 2 minutes exactly, I would say, if I was going to estimate it. And I blacked out. Lights out. Like my computer went off. Like total blackout.
It's like you have no memory of.
No memory of. All I remember is now I'm waking up and standing in front of my truck with a federal officer from the Social Security office. And he's asking me, "Are you okay, sir? Are you okay?" And I look at him, and I'm in spit-shine boots, starched, BDUs, beret, starch and spits is what we call them. And if anytime you left Ranger Battalion, anytime you came from Ranger Battalion outside that stockade fence into the rest of post, around all the infantry units, yes, all that, or out in the civilian world, if you were in uniform, you had to be in starch and spits. You had to have a starched uniform with a perfect beret, and your boots better be spit shine. They were black leather boots then. They'd better be spit shine. You'd better be able to see yourself in. And that's how, we maintained that standard. During the summertime, we did roll our sleeves up. We had to keep them down. We trained that way, and we fought that way, and
so you're at your truck, and then this.
I'm in my truck, and this guy's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And he's giving me respect because I look respectful. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking around trying to figure out what the hell just happened, And then all of a sudden, like this explosion in my head of like blood red, body parts just flying through the air towards me. And then it all came back to me. If I would have been in that building when I was supposed to be in that building on Tuesday, there would have been 169 victims of the Synchronicity bombing, not 168. I would have been make it. But the Army called me away from it the week before. And what's ironic is they didn't just call me away because they wanted to put me in. They called me away because somebody was going to the Army and they decided not to. And they backed out. And then they filled me. Out of everybody that was holding, they filled me with that spot. So there we get into that spiritual aspect of things again, I believe. Obviously, there was a spiritual aspect to bring the lifeguard to my house, right? There was definitely a spiritual aspect to what occurred after I left the SEALs and before, after I left the Naval Special Warfare Center and before I became a paramedic when I was on that vision quest, 10 months. That was definitely a spiritual aspect to that.
And he said that you had a certain interpretation for why you had a blackout. Did he explain to you?
I believe that on a spiritual level, I'm a Christian. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. The Holy Spirit guides me, directs me, and protects me on a daily basis. And I have proof of that on numerous occasions throughout my career and my life. And I believe that the Holy Spirit was showing me that, which is God, Jesus Christ, God. The Holy Spirit was showing me what it would be like to be in that bombing. So that as I write my book now, I'm on my second book now, and I'm about to get to the bombing. As I write that book, maybe I can bring comfort to victims of the bombing, the families. Bring them a level of comfort to understanding that more than likely, and from what I know about concussions and from what I know about getting locked out, from what I know about blast pressure and all that, and buildings coming down on you, more than likely, as soon as that bomb went off, that's exactly what it was like. 2 minutes past 9, that bomb went off. And all their loved ones that were in there, it died like this. There was no pain. There was no thinking about it. There was no fear.
There was no like suffering.
No suffering. Yeah. It just shut my computer off.
And it happened 2 minutes after he had stepped into that office the second time.
Yeah.
Even though you did not know that the first building.
Never thought about it. From the time the bomb went off, I didn't even think about it then. I never thought about my appointment at the African Bureau building. From that Friday, that I decided not to go Tuesday, from that Friday on, I never thought about it.
But at some point
until I ended up in that Social Security office again.
And then he
looked at our security office in the African Bureau building.
Yeah.
It was disintegrated. There's nothing but a hole there. That was just a hole. There was nothing there.
Mm.
So those people were vaporized. And I firmly believe that that experience was given to me.
So after you had
What
that
I
blackout
and what they encountered.
After you had that blackout and vision is when you realized or looked up that, oh, that first building was also a Social Security office. Is that when you put 2 and 2 together?
Oh, it was immediate. As soon as I saw the body parts flying to me, the blood and everything, it changed me. I was supposed to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, right there. And the only way I was supposed to be in the moment was in the Social Security office. So
Yeah.
everything right then and well said came back to me. Yeah.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it was insane.
Thanks for joining Albert and me today in the Room of Lives. In the next part, he shares his struggles with physical and mental trauma and how he received healing from ibogaine treatment through our psychedelics research study.